Hi again, folks. Thanks for all your feedback so far on the SketchUp training series. I'm aware that some of you are very keen to get onto dynamic components in more depth and to get onto cut listing. I've also had feedback that some people would like to cover more of the basics of drawing before moving too far ahead. So in this episode, I would like to use this table as a way of showing you a number of different techniques, which I'm going to storm through fairly quickly, but hopefully clearly. And that may just help you get up to speed on a few different things, including a bit more about components and going deeper into them, which may be just a good background to getting later into dynamic components. Now at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you a great resource to learn more about dynamic components if you're really impatient to get onto that next. So with this table, it's just a way of showing you some copying, moving techniques, some shaping using curves, chamfering, tapering, and a few other tools. So let's get started. I'm going to draw a square with a rectangle. I'm going to draw it on my ground plane, which I've got pre-drawn because I find that quite helpful. Let's say that's going to be 600 by 600. What I'm actually going to do here is draw a quarter of the table so that I can draw it 4 times as fast. Now I want it to have a rounded corner, which I'll do with the arc tool. That's over here on the toolbar. Now to just get doing this quickly, you can click anywhere. That cyan colour tells you that it's flying off at a tangent to the line that I clicked on. And this colour means it's snapped to a perfect quarter circle, which means it's a tangent to both those lines. Oh, I'm not quite sure what I did there. If you double click quickly, it automatically deletes the other lines because it knows that's what you want to do. Now, having drawn it, I'll click spacebar for the pointer tool, click on it to select it, and I've got entity info up here, which I could have got to if it wasn't there already by right-clicking or control-clicking, entity info. Now the radius, let's say that will be 30 millimeters, or whatever you want it to be. Now I'm going to push this up. Actually, I'm going to push it down through the floor plane, because that's going to suit me better later. And push it down to 40 millimeters. Enter. Now notice that because there are 3 different lines, well 2 lines and an arc, where they meet, the push-pull operation causes a vertical line to come down. So you can hide that using the eraser tool. So go to E for eraser, or find it over in this toolbar here. Don't just click on it because that will delete it and that will break the surfaces like this. You don't want that, so undo, Command Z, Shift to delete it. So hold down Shift, click on it, and you've just hidden it. So the line is still there, but it's hidden. Now I'm going to make this a group, so I'm triple clicking on it, which has selected all the geometry. Right click, I'm going to make it a component, I should say. Make component, and I'm going to call that quarter table 1. I'm now going to move that up into position. I've just used my wheel on the mouse to zoom out. M for move. Now when you move something, you don't have to click on the thing itself, you can just click on any reference point. So I'm going to click on the 0 origin point here, so that I can easily move up the blue axis. So blue is Z, which is vertical. I'm going to move that up to my tabletop height, which I want to be 70 centimeters, so 700. And that's why I push-pulled it into the floor, just so I could easily get the tabletop sitting a fixed height above the floor. So there we have a component that is a quarter of the table. I'm just going to work on this a little bit more before duplicating it. I'm going to add my chamfer. So double click to open that component. I'm working within that now. And L for line. And I want to just add a little chamfer across the corner. Now, similar to the arc tool, it shows you where it's going. So that's going straight down. That is snapping, you see there, to 45 degrees, because it knows you might want to do that. I want this to be a precise size chamfer though, so I'm going to use the pencil as a sort of guideline, because it's quick and easy. Click there, come across, let's say we want that to come across 10 millimeters. That's given me an endpoint. It's effectively broken that line. So I can then come down again. But interestingly, it breaks its ability to put it at 45 degrees because it's coming off a broken line. Let's just try that a different way. So undo, undo again. Got a continuous line there. I'm going to just arbitrarily put this in like I did with the arc. That snaps to 45 degrees. Let's just see what happens if I click on it, right click, entity info, tell it a length. I can't do that. Right, I'm learning something here. So you get the idea, you can mess around with that. There's different ways you could use guidelines and other things to control the size of that, but let's not get too hung up on it. I want to show you now the follow me tool, which is over here. Now that will follow any surface along a line, and it can be done in an additive or a subtractive way. So you could create a skirting around the base of a room by getting a skirting profile and following it around a line. You can also cut something out of an existing surface. So select the surface you want to cut out. Now there's a funny quirk of this tool where often if you just click on it, it just zooms straight along the first line it finds. If you undo that and then click again, it's like it thinks, okay, you want to be able to follow the lines that you choose. So I'm now following that along. That was a single click on that surface, and it will follow the lines that I hover over. So you see that's following around the arc there, following to that line, stopping at that point. So you click, and that subtracts that chamfer. Now I'm going to duplicate this component. And I can do that with the rotate tool, which is over here. So the center of my rotation is this point. Now if you notice this tool doing this, it will use its rotation plane as whatever surface you've been hovering over. So if you hover over this surface first and carefully come to that corner, it will stay on that plane. If you want to be absolutely sure it stays on that plane, you can press Shift while it's there, and then wherever you go, it will stay rotating on that plane. So Shift and then click on that corner. Then you can click your starting grab point. That's your second click. Now at any point before you finish this operation, you can press the modifier key, which is Alt on the Mac. I think it might be Control on Windows, and that copies it. So then your final point is at 90 degrees here. And we can then copy both of them. So I'm just going to do a copy move now. So M for move, Alt for copy move, bring that over, and I'm going to just rotate that again around the center and just type 180. M for move again, grab the middle, bring that over there. Now you remember I talked about hiding lines, hiding geometry with the eraser tool. There's a few bits we need to hide here. I could have done that earlier, but you can do it later by making sure that you are isolating the other geometry. So I've got a setting on here, up at View, Component Edit, and I've got a tick next to Hide Similar Components. You can also tick Hide Rest of Model, and that means that when you're editing a given component, which you can do by double-clicking it, you isolate that visually. Now what I want to do is double-click this surface where it meets the others, right-click and hide, which is actually just the same as Shift Erasing, but Shift Erase tends to just work on the one thing that you click on. So double-click, and in fact we have this little artifact here. What I'm actually going to do is simply erase that. So eraser, no shift, just get rid of those because we don't want them. So back to double click here, right click. Now that's confused because the line over here is already hidden. So it's going to work better if I go to edit and hide up here. Okay, so that now gives me the effect of a seamless tabletop. Now I probably could have drawn that particular thing quicker as one, but what I've done is I've set myself up for drawing the legs and the apron as single items, which will then duplicate to the rest of the model. So let's crack on with that. Let's get into this component. And now we're going to start working with components within components. So to start drawing my leg, I want to make sure that it's not sticking to the tabletop. So I'm going to triple click the tabletop and I'm going to make it a group, because I don't think I particularly need it to be a component, because the top level, the parent level, is a component. So whatever I do to that, because it's within another component, it will duplicate to its sort of siblings. Right, undo. I was doing Command Z there for undo. Okay, so let's just check where we are. Double click that. We're within the parent component, but that is now grouped within there. I'm going to use keystroke T for tape measure. Click, drag, type in, let's say 30, and then drag off this surface, 30. Go to my rectangle, click on the intersection, start to drag, and then I'm going to type 90 by 90. P for push-pull. And while you're in an operation, you can change your visibility settings. So I'm going to go to View, Component, Edit, uncheck Hide Rest of Model. So that just allows me to see the floor plane. And I'm going to make that leg, again, it may as well be a group. But at this sort of stage, you do have to have some awareness of the future implications of what you want to achieve. So you have to then think about, do I want it to be a group or do I want it to be a component? Component will mean that if you copy it, it will be duplicated. So if I wanted to copy this within its sort of parent space that I'm now working within, and know that it would duplicate and changes to the first one would affect the second one, then I'd maybe want to make it a component. But because I know its copy exists within other parent components that are the same, it may as well be a group. I hope that's clear. So double clicking back in, triple clicking, make that a group, and then at this stage I'm going to add the apron. Let's say that's, so T for tape measure, 20 mm back from that edge. R for rectangle, let's say, I don't know, 70, 25. P for push-pull, up to that edge there. Double click that surface, right click and hide. Triple click to select that, right click, make it a group again. And now an easy way just to place that where I want to place it is, let's see now. Yes, I was going to just copy rotate it. I've disappeared under the floor there, so I'm just going to last view, which is a useful little thing under there. I'm going to actually uncheck, well, I'm going to recheck hide rest of model, so I can't disappear under that floor plane. You see how it's greying? I am actually disappearing under the theoretical ground plane, which you can turn off in your scene settings. Okay, so we are going to copy that. We're going to do a rotate copy of that piece, and we can just select a point under here, and then Alt for modifier to copy it around. You know, as I'm doing this, I'm just aware that I'm forgetting exactly how I want to do that. So I'm sure there'll be people watching this that will realize the rotation point that would put this where it needs to be, but I'm not going to get hung up on that. I'm going to just move it move it to where it wants to be. Right, so move that to there. Now, worth noting that I've made that a group, so actually they are independent. So if I'd made it a component, I could have changed one, and it would have changed the other. So just to show you, that's not changing the other because it's a group. So you would be wanting to think, well, do I want that apron to be the same all the way around, or do I actually want one side perhaps to be different to the other? And that would determine whether you want it to be a group or a component. Okay, so escape will get you out of working within that component. I'm going to just delete my guides. That's a common procedure for me. I have loads of guidelines everywhere. Delete them once they're no longer needed. There we have our table. And now let's just see if we can show you the tapering and the other little feature we've put in here. So I'm going to change my settings to not hiding similar components, but hiding the rest of the model. I'm going to double click again to get into that leg. And I want to push pull the top down, let's say 120. I'm then going to add my little groove feature. Now there's various ways you could do this. This is just one way. I've gone to the offset tool, which is also, I think it's keystroke F. I've clicked on that surface and it's bringing in its edges, and I can now type 6, bringing it in 6mm, and hit enter. I'm going to go to P for push pull and push that up, let's say 12. I'm going to do my offset again off this surface. Oops, undo that, click too soon. I'm going to offset out to the original place, and I'm going to push that back up. Let's go to C, rest of the model again. No, unhide rest of model, push that back up. And now in fact I need to push that rim up as well, which would give me the option of doing other decorative features. Different ways I could have done that, pros and cons to each way. Now let's bring that taper in. So back into that component. Now I'm going to select the lower rectangle, which I can do from above. So spacebar for pointer tool, drag a bounding box. So I've clicked at the top left, dragged down to the top right, and that is selecting whatever's within that box, which I know is going to select that square even if I can't see it. Now, in case you don't know, if I dragged from right to left, it would have selected whatever was touched by the bounding box. So you see that selected all of that geometry. But I actually just want to select that square. So that is selected. I'm going to go to S. So now you can see the scale handles are showing just on that 2D square. I'm going to click to scale it, and the lines that come down vertically to it will have to follow suit. So click, and I can scale it like that. What I'm actually doing is just scaling in from that corner. So if you hold down the modifier key, which on the Mac is Alt, it will scale it around its center point. I was going to say I'll click at an arbitrary point. Actually, I want to scale it by half, and it is kind of snapping there. You see the bottom right hand dialog box, it's snapping to 0.5. So I'm going to click again, and there we've got my tapered leg. So there we have a table. I hope that was helpful. I think I'm going to leave it there. We're just about within the 20-minute point. I do plan to make more bite-sized episodes in future. I've had feedback to that effect. I just thought this would be a good way to just give you lots of drawing knowledge, and then I think we will take a few things step by step. I'm thinking the next one, based on some feedback, will be understanding materials and textures, and I'll make that a standalone episode. So look out for that next time. I told you I would give you some pointers on where to find more about dynamic components if you're chomping at the bit for that. So go to YouTube and look at SketchUp's own channel and find the thumbnails that look like this. So it's SketchUp Skill Builder, and they have a series recently on dynamic components. I don't think it's got its own playlist, it's within another Skill Builder playlist. If you just search for it, you can find dynamic components, and that's a really good way to get into them, which I think I may as well just refer you to, and then we'll pick up on some of that later as we get into it ourselves. Okay, thank you for watching, and do give me feedback. I do want these lessons to suit you and suit your needs as a fitted furniture maker working in metric. See you next time.